habit that makes life difficult is unconscious incompetence. I will explain. Of all the 7 pillars of culture, the one we defer to most is the school system, followed by religion. And as I earlier indicated, one of the most shocking discoveries during my research was Harvard University's sad finding about education that points to the fact that formal education is able to harness only up to 22% of people's true effectiveness and greatness in life. Indeed, what Harvard University noted was that though aptitude is responsible for only 15% of success in life, and attitude accounts for 85%, 90% of the time and money spent on formal education is spent developing the aptitude, whereas only 10% of the time and finances is spent developing the attitude. Research done under the auspices of the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching and other institutions corroborates this. That is why you were probably not taught the subject of emotional intelligence, and a lot of schools still do not teach it. Even more surprisingly, the higher you go in formal education or schooling, the less you learn about a subject. In that way, school teaches you more and more about less and less. I need to explain this a little more so that it doesn't get misconstrued. Take it that you want to become a psychologist. So first, you go to the university for a bachelor's degree in psychology. This will involve general principles in psychology applicable to every sphere of human endeavor. When you decide to go higher, you will be required to narrow down to an area of interest, say child psychology, and study more about that in a master's degree program, essentially getting to know more in a much smaller part of the field of psychology. When you decide to go higher still, you will be required to narrow down further to a smaller area of interest within child psychology, say psychology of children with autism, and study more about that in a doctorate degree program, essentially getting to know more in a much smaller part of the field of psychology. It is therefore not surprising what the renowned economist, Professor Sir William Arthur Lewis, says about the mainstream educational system. He says that education and schooling are not the same thing. What goes on inside the schools are not always education, and the result may well be to reduce productive capacity rather than to increase it. So the great obstacle to progress is not ignorance, but the illusion of knowledge. Illusion of knowledge is thinking that you know much just because you have experience, certificates, and or titles, and thus despising complementary knowledge. We can therefore agree with Albert Einstein that wisdom is not a product of schooling, but of the lifelong attempt to acquire it. Now, let me show you all the squares. Ta-da! You see, it's not difficult to make out the 30 squares after all. And what happens is that what one already knows, often as a result of the mainstream education, immediately occupies one's mind and prevents one from proceeding further. And as I said, the exercise reflects what happens in all aspects of our lives. We generally settle for the usual 16 in the squares of life, even though we are capable of attaining 30. Well, oftentimes we don't even think that life has more to offer us beyond the usual 16. That's why the illiterates of the future are not those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Indeed, when you know the right things, the boundaries around your life suddenly disappear. Unconscious incompetence puts restrictive boundaries around people and limits their ability to get pleasing results. So Hosea the prophet says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." Many people demonstrate gross unconscious incompetence when it comes to using the brain, through no fault of theirs though. When I said that majority of people have accepted to be less than they were born to be, and are thus accomplishing far less than their true capabilities, I mean 97% of people. Meaning, if you take every 100 individuals at random, then with the exception of 3 of them, all of the people will be underestimating themselves and will thus be using very little, far less than 10% of their true potential, especially their brain power. I'm going to make a statement, and chances are that you may find some difficulties with it, but don't. You are a genius. You are powerful beyond measure. Fundamentally, your brain and that of your people are not significantly different from the brains great achievers of the past had. Your brain is fundamentally the same type as the ones great achievers of today have, and the same type as the ones great achievers of the future will have. And whatever they accomplished or may accomplish, you have the inborn capabilities to accomplish same, similar, or even more. What follows from this fact is that you personally have the inborn ability to learn to become whatever you choose, plan and execute to achieve whatever goals you choose, and or work to earn whatever level of income or wealth you choose. Likewise, your people. In the parable of the talents, Matthew 25 verses 14 to 30, we are told that the master gave talents or resources to 3 of his servants. To one, he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1. And the scripture says, to each according to his own ability. Now, there is a counterpart parable in Luke chapter 19 verses 12 to 27. The master had 10 servants, and he gave each of them equal amount of resources, 1 mina each. In this account, the first one earned 10 minas by doing business with the initial 1 mina. The second earned 5 minas by doing business with the initial 1 mina. Eventually, they were rewarded according to how productive they had been. There are certain resources that God has given each one of us in equal measure. Can you name some? I will name 2. Time. Every person has 24 hours per day at his or her disposal. The second is brain power. Every person born into this world is a genius within, unless the brain is diseased. Understand that it is not who you are that holds you back. It is who you think you are not. For you were designed for accomplishment, engineered for success, and endowed with the seeds of greatness. Indeed, you have the inborn ability or potential to start or develop a theory, a company, a product, and or service that will significantly improve or transform the lives of at least 1 billion people within 10 years. So clearly, chances are that you underestimate your capabilities and may currently be using very little of your true or hidden potential abilities, especially your brain power. There is 97 out of 100 chances. That is 97% probability. Our brains are so powerful. But what is sad, however, is that scientists estimate that most persons during their lifetime use their brains to achieve just about 1/100th of 1% of what the brain is capable of achieving. In other words, if the brain is capable of achieving 10,000 marks, what most people achieve with it is just 1 out of 10,000. It's like having one of the most powerful supercomputers in the world, like the Jaguar or IBM's Summit, and only using it as a clock to display the time. How does that feel? To illustrate further, assuming that the white cylinder shown is what the brain is capable of achieving throughout your lifetime on Earth, then ordinarily, what you are likely to achieve with it is a green speck shown against the yellow cylinder. The yellow cylinder represents the comparative proportion of what you are likely to refuse to use your brain for. The books that will not be written, the businesses that will never be created, the theories that will remain unknown, the happiness, health, and wealth that you may refuse to create, and so on. For instance, a lot of people perform poorly in their academics just because they do not know or apply the right studying techniques. The catch is that reading is a popular learning method, but it is a lower method. So ordinarily, if you read something, you are likely to remember only 10% of it after 2 weeks. There are 12 methods in the series, and the higher methods of learning allows you to understand so well and to remember over 90% even after 2 weeks. So much more effective. I like to emphasize that all these are mainly about what one ordinarily ends up using the brain to achieve, as against what the brain was created to be capable of achieving. So, in a nutshell, unconscious incompetence is not knowing what you don't know and still being fine while oblivious, especially thinking that you know much just because you have experience, certificates, and or titles, and thus despising complementary knowledge. Truly, everybody has inner genius, but it is our perception, that is our education, that prevents us from tapping into this inner genius. So, what can we do to avoid this habit? Thankfully, we are not in 1644. This is 2020. Almost all the directions or guidance you need in order to become exceptionally brilliant, exceptionally creative or innovative, exceptionally productive or wealthy, exceptionally healthy, exceptionally free, and so much more, and thus live a truly fulfilling life, are known and already documented across all known disciplines. They are available in bookshops, libraries, and powered by the internet. Knowledge is everywhere, but you must set time aside. I believe that no matter how busy your life is, you can set aside at least 5 minutes every day to learn something new, especially knowledge or skills that will significantly improve your life. You must also budget some resources for it. It is recommended that a person's budget for self-education should exceed the budget for entertainment. But how do you know the particular books or information to read, especially on the internet? One area in which a surprising lot of people show gross unconscious incompetence is leadership. So learn about leadership as much as you can. As I explained in the interview I granted Bernard Avila on CTFM, there are two main stages of leadership. One, de facto leadership, also termed unrecognized leadership. And two, positional leadership, also termed recognized leadership. What's interesting is that even if you don't see yourself as a leader because perhaps you don't have a leadership title, or even perhaps you see yourself as young, you are still a leader, but a de facto leader or unrecognized leader. Depending on how you perform, consciously or unconsciously, in your de facto leadership, you may be called into a position, and that's where you become a positional leader or recognized leader. especially in your recognized leadership position, you necessarily start at a base level called position level, where your influence or authority is merely by your rights as per the position or title you hold. So people follow you just because they have to, and not necessarily because they want to. At this level, morale and productivity among your people will be relatively low unless you use sound leadership principles, techniques, and strategies to quickly advance to higher levels of leadership. Very critical. Say from position to permission level, then to production level, then to people development level, and finally to personhood. Unfortunately, owing to unconscious incompetence, the fact that people don't know what they do not know, too many people remain at position level and produce somewhat mediocre results. So you must either learn true leadership in order to grow your influence, or otherwise in order to prepare yourself so that should you be called into a positional role, you will not be found wanting. Please note that I'm not talking about the three popular leadership styles: democratic, autocratic, or authoritarian, and the laissez-faire. No, they are mediocre. Each of them is like being half leader and not a full leader. What I'm talking about is a paradigm shift. I'm talking about true leadership. Get to learn true leadership. I do a separate presentation on that. But generally, to avoid unconscious incompetence, follow self-help authors and self-help organizations. Read their books and articles. Watch or otherwise listen to their interviews. Attend their seminars. Enroll in their courses, and so on. Talking about seminars, I highly recommend the CS Empowerment Summit to you. All the presentations are geared at helping participants to harness the 78% potential that ordinarily formal education is unable to harness, based on Zinc for Life. Extensively researched, amazingly concise, logically structured, and extremely powerful. A year before getting married, I relocated to a different part of town and joined a church in this new location. I then joined the youth fellowship and along the line got elected to lead the fellowship. I soon reckoned that I really needed to learn leadership. Otherwise, it was going to be very difficult leading the highly heterogeneous group it was. So I headed to my favorite bookshop and got leadership books and some general self-help books that caught my attention. I read those books diligently, and that was the beginning of an unforgettable experience. It was as though I was receiving education afresh. I can boldly say that the education I received from reading those books was as valuable as the education I had received in my 6 years of university education, and in some cases, even more valuable. One of the most shocking discoveries that actually marked a major turning point in my life and career was Harvard University's sad finding about education that points to the fact that formal education is able to harness up to only 22% of people's true effectiveness and greatness in life. In essence, education and schooling are not the same thing. Why hadn't anybody drawn our attention to this fact that formal education harnesses so little? And why hadn't anybody drawn our attention to self-help books while in school as part of our education and emphasized their equal importance as the mainstream courses that were being taught? And if what the mainstream educational system teaches is able to harness up to only 22% of people's true effectiveness and greatness in life, how can we harness the remaining 78% and get more people to be truly or fully effective and truly great? Well, it was better late than never, so the book corners or sections became my favorite places in the supermarkets. There was a time I went to the supermarket supposedly to buy baby stuff for a little girl, and I ended up buying books rather than some of the baby stuff I was there to buy. It was that crazy. Within a couple of years, I bought and read more than 100 self-help books. Some of them I read over and over again, in addition to the Hebrew, Greek, and Hebrew Bible. And the researching or learning has continued since, especially focusing on human and organizational performance improvement techniques and strategies. On the average, I was sleeping for only 4 hours a day. It's been that intensive. I felt that my greatest contribution towards the development of humanity, especially Ghana and Africa, was to share my findings. I was thus moved to collate the best and the most effective principles, techniques, and strategies that can harness the true or hidden potential of any individual or group of individuals, no matter the person's background and current circumstances. That is, irrespective of a person's age, gender, looks, financial resources, educational background, and so on. I call that Zinc for Life. It took more than 7 years of intensive research and development on my part to collate those amazing principles, techniques, and strategies that constitute Zinc for Life. And I keep improving them because I want Zinc for Life to be current and remain the best in the world. To date, I have covered more than 1,000 self-help volumes by way of books, articles, audios, videos, and so on, just to keep Zinc for Life current, relevant, and the best. The lessons or principles from more than 1,000 volumes on personal development, organizational development, entrepreneurship, and leadership are also available via the Zinc for Life manual in various formats, including PDF, audio, video, and direct coaching. The website address is zincforlife.com. In addition to the books and seminars, I publish a lot of insightful articles on the CS community blogging or publishing website. This is the website address, csapp.com. This website puts a lot of power at your disposal. Let me show you around briefly. Within a short time of loading, a special offer pop-up will appear. Immediately, you will notice a bold button that says Report an Issue. If you know of any problem or issue that you feel that someone should do something about, you can click this button to prompt CS. My organization CS trains people to creatively solve problems and will take it up. From this panel or pop-up, you can also get access to some of my books, like The Purpose Compass. It may interest you to note that I wrote about these 4 habits I'm sharing with you in The Purpose Compass, and it has a whole lot more, like the 7 steps to a truly fulfilling life in chapter 4. It has 5 chapters in all. I need to focus on the objectives of this presentation, so I can't say much about the eagle in you, except to say that it is 3 times the size of the Purpose Compass, so you can imagine the level of insights it contains. Do check it out too. You can close the pop-up at any time and return to the main menu and other elements of the homepage. Click on the CS Voice hashtag to see all manner of articles, like the rising buzz on emotional intelligence, how it terribly affects you, and 3 impeccable reasons why you should be concerned, and the first and most amazing seed every great parent sows into the life of his or her child, and many other goodies. Because it's a community website, you can also publish your articles or worthwhile thoughts on it. You notice that at the top, we have the main menu. The publications menu item will take you to a list of all the articles or publications on the website, arranged into categories. And there's a button there to help you publish yours too, if you have. The Masterclass menu item will lead you to join our online Masterclass discussions. the CS logo will always take you back to the home page. On phones and tablets, the hamburger icon gives you the main menu. So on the home page and on the CS Voice screen. In any case, whatever you are willing to become is defined by what you are willing to do. That's about the third habit that makes life difficult. Great. If you have any questions on what I have shared so far, you may pause this video and post your question at the comment section below. Great. Let me round up. Every morning in Africa, a gazelle wakes up. It knows it must run faster than the fastest lion, or it will be killed. Every morning a lion wakes up. It knows it must outrun the slowest gazelle, or it will starve to death. Life is one exciting adventure that can be summarized in this illustration. You most likely are aware that life is a race. You are at any moment of your life chasing one thing, whilst another thing is chasing you. You know, the kind of race that exists between the lion and the gazelle or the antelope. For instance, when it comes to pursuing happiness, health, wealth, and peace, you are a lion. And when it comes to paying bills, you are a gazelle. Whatever the case is, you need to run fast enough. In other words, it doesn't matter if you are a lion or a gazelle. When the sun comes up, you'd better be running. And knowing the 4 habits and avoiding them will help you to run fast indeed in every area or aspect of your life. Great. This presentation has been brought to you by the kind courtesy of CS Foundation, Extreme Human Resource Development Non-Governmental Organization, the Social Ministry of CS. To support this effort, please go to csfoundation.org/support or call +233 26 637 7777. One very important thing to note is that on the average, a person must hear a seemingly new information about 7 times before he or she pays critical attention to it. So chances are that there are a lot of points I made in this presentation that need to be repeated before you can really appreciate it the way I meant it. Let me say that each person should hear the entire message at least 7 times over and over. So you should purpose or decide that you will listen to it again and share it at least 7 times. The message is recommended for any person who is 7 years or above, all the way up to 77 years. So share it to your timeline and also share with individuals and groups on the various social media platforms. And please like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the notification bell so that anytime we post a new video, you will be among the first to be notified. Thank you in advance. I'm particularly inspired by Jeremiah 29:7 to reach especially the whole of Africa with this message. Let's do it together and raise people who will truly be the light of the world and the salt of the land, since we have been created for good works. By the way, some of the images used in this presentation were downloaded from the internet, especially the Pexels.com photo sharing site, and I give credit to their respective photographers. Bye for now.